Come on in. Welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about endgame threats who came out of nowhere. This is one of my favorite Survivor editing idiosyncrasies. Storytelling wisdom holds that the ending of a story needs stakes and tension. The winner of the season needs an enemy to vanquish in the finale. They can't just cakewalk to the end. Usually. Sometimes that person is sitting right next to them, two big threats showing down for the jury's votes. But more often than not, that person is the final juror or second to last juror, the final boss which the winner must slay. Usually, the show does their due diligence building this person up as a proper threat all season long, so that their elimination at the end hits hard and feels earned. And sometimes we get to the finale and we're told that a player who was invisible for 90% of the season is suddenly an existential threat to our winner's game. So today, I thought I'd go over some of these under-edited endgame threats, who they were, whether they were actually threats to win or not, and then I'll offer my speculation as to why I think they got sandbagged so hard in the edit. So put on your favorite purple shirt as we talk about 5 endgame threats in Survivor who came out of nowhere. At number 5 is Lauren from Survivor 44. Let's start with our newest example. New Era Survivor has been pretty good about properly propping up endgame threats and not making them seem like they came completely out of left field. Lauren is the exception. Outside of the premiere, where she got a lot of journey-related content, Lauren was almost completely invisible in the pre-merge. She was on the tribe which got by far the least amount of screen time and whose dynamics we hardly understood. In the post-merge, she emerged a little bit, but usually as second fiddle to Jamie, who the show went out of their way to dunk on. A lot of Lauren's story was focused on being a good role model for her kids and less on the game sense, strategic side of things. Probably because Lauren and Jamie's bizarre late-game moves enabled the Tika 3 to run away with the endgame. It feels like anyone who's watched more than one season of this show would know that one of the Tika 3, the main characters of the season, who got dozens more confessionals than most other players, and whose eyes we see the story through, is going to win. But because these 3 stick it out together all the way to the end, Lauren is instead propped up as some massive threat to give the first part of the finale some tension. I'm not buying it, and frankly, Lauren wasn't either. At her last tribal council, we get a weepy Mitch-style goodbye where everyone talks about how great Lauren is and that's why she's gotta go. She talks about how much she's grown, and that's all well and good, but man, even Rupert put a rock in his pocket. I have to imagine that she was yet another victim of the Tika 3's overbearing edit. In an era where screen time equity among players is at an all-time high, 44 sticks out so hard because the Tika 3 got so much more screen time than everyone else. And I do think the story suffers for that. A shame, too, because Ratu and Soka had so many players who, had they been fleshed out a bit more, would have been all-time characters like, At number 4 is Allison from Survivor David vs. Goliath. Outside of the person in the number 1 spot, Dr. Allison had probably the most on-island win equity against the most players of anyone on this list. Liked by all, strategic, challenge beast, Allison was a legitimately well-rounded competitor and someone who probably does well on Survivor 99 times out of 100. From the Carl vote onwards, Allison copped at least 1 vote at every single tribal council, meaning she had a 5-tribal streak of getting votes. And yet, not a lot of Allison content in these episodes. A lot of Mike, a lot of Christian, a lot of Angelina, but we hardly ever hear Allison's perspective on things. I remember there being so many Reddit threads during this season asking why we're constantly told Allison is such a huge threat when we hadn't really seen much of her game. And yeah, if you're gonna push this person as a huge strategic endgame threat for 5 episodes in a row, maybe don't show her brushing her hair with a fork. Honestly, the failure to show why Allison is a threat is the one major storytelling flaw in this otherwise brilliantly told story. And on the one hand, I get it. Look at this cast. This is one of the best newbie casts of all time. Most of the huge personalities made it really far. And no shade to Allison, but she was more or less a normal person surrounded by a bunch of cartoon characters. On another season, Allison would have been one of the main characters in this spot, but it's gotta sting to make Final 5 and get sandbagged in the edit this hard. In tight with everyone, survived 4 votes as a target, reduced to like the 5th funniest Angelina punchline. Ouch. At number 3 is Ashley in Survivor Redemption Island. For 3/4 of the season, the main tension of Redemption Island was whether Rob was going to keep Ometepe together. And before you leave a comment, I didn't say it was good tension, I just said that was the tension. Thus, the show runs into a problem in the endgame. The story is concluded, Rob's alliance won, and because Rob and Philip ate up all the screen time this season, they're left having to pull an endgame finale threat out of their butt. Because obviously Rob isn't losing a jury vote to Philip. I don't care how many strings Jessam Herring tries to pull. So all of a sudden we start hearing about how huge a threat Ashley is. And come on guys, Ashley? The justification we got was that Ashley and Natalie were too close, and that Ashley was corrupting Natalie with all of her sudden strategizing. Oh, 2 independent thought alarms in one day? She's gotta go. But it's just really hard to take this newfound strategic threat seriously when most of what we've seen of Ashley thus far has been her laying in the shelter, berating Philip, or laying in the shelter and berating Philip. Before this, Ashley was a barely there Rob minion, the blonder, meaner clone of Natalie Tenorelli. And yeah, she kinda was, but in all fairness to her, being Rob's smartest zombie put her an immunity challenge away from winning the game. For every single person on this jury, the criteria to win was A, don't be Natalie and Philip, and B, don't be Boston Rob. The jury deplored Rob. They thought his gameplay was mean-spirited. They thought he had far too big an advantage being a 4-timer going against newbies. But they had absolutely zero respect for Natalie and Philip. So when out of nowhere Rob starts talking about how dangerous Ashley is to his game, he's not lying. She was the last remaining obstacle between him and $1 million, because he couldn't beat anyone else. Had Ashley won that last immunity challenge, she wins the game, but she didn't. So Rob mind controls Natalie and Philip once again, and she's sent out the door. Any tension over who might win leaving with her. The season's outcome becoming even more obvious. And that was before David glazed Rob from the jury bench.
When we started this game, 2 people came in. One of them claimed to be the best to ever play the game. He walked out on day 8. There's a guy sitting over there that just played the best strategic game this game has ever seen. And it's pretty damn easy to tell you who deserves to get your vote tonight.
Damn, you'd think he's proposing to Carolina the way he's down on his knees. At number 2 is Darra in Survivor Pearl Islands. This one may be the most baffling of them all. As we saw with Lauren, sometimes the last member of the opposing alliance is built up as an endgame threat just by default. I could at least squint and see that with Lauren. There is no way I am buying it with Darra. Despite being well-liked by the Old Morgan tribe, despite her impressive 3 immunity run, Darra still felt barely there even as we headed into the end game of Pearl Islands. She was the last member standing of the main Morgan alliance, but she had long streaks of episodes with no confessionals, and when she got one, that was it. Just one. Honestly, I've never quite understood why.
We need to win this challenge today bad, because going to tribal council is not fun. And, you know, who wants to vote off a member of your own tribe, you know?
Man, her speech to the jury would have killed. After Darra wins 2 immunities in a row, we start hearing about how threatening her physical game is, and how she's gotta go once she loses immunity. The players are terrified of a Darra immunity run, which just does not translate to the audience at all. While we did see her immunity wins, the threat of Darra winning her way to the end doesn't ever feel real because we never even hear from her, let alone her perspective on her game or her immunity wins. No one with this little content had ever been in the final 2, so I'm just not buying it. It's like if they tried to make a Zoe into some big threat in Marquesas. Plainly put, they just didn't do their due diligence building Darra up before this, probably because you needed to watch her confessionals at 2x speed. It's actually pretty funny to me. I really love Darra's strange little place in Survivor lore. A season with some of the biggest characters of all time, returnees galore. A universally beloved season with pound for pound one of the best newbie casts ever assembled. Final boss? Darra. At number 1 is Brett in Survivor Samoa, and it isn't even close. Galoo is one of the most under-edited tribes of all time, and Brett is the most under-edited member on it. And yet, I would say he played probably the best game this entire season, and was an immunity win away from a jury sweep. Brett was the glue that held Galoo together, and yet you wouldn't know it from his edit, which seemingly went out of its way to hide him. This tell, don't show approach goes against every storytelling principle on the planet. But since when did Survivor Samoa have principles? I mean, this is the season that proudly cast Ben Browning. Still, I've always wondered if they had more in mind for Brett before pivoting away to going whole hog on Russell Hantz. He gets the first confessional of the season, and this is almost always given to a person who is narratively important. But then he just completely disappears after this, showing up again at the final 6 as some alleged massive threat. And yeah, he was. Brett was insanely important to the game dynamics, but when I say he was invisible to the audience, I mean invisible. Forget confessionals, this guy was hardly even on screen at all. Oh man, I think that's his elbow. It's genuinely hilarious when the finale starts and we suddenly start hearing from Foa about how they've got to get Brett out. I mean, they're right, but sitting on the couch, I'd wager at least 90% of viewers audibly said, "Who's Brett?" Well, let's just let Russell explain it.
He's not some superstar to me. You start thinking that, you start getting weak in the mind, thinking you can't beat him like you're stepping in the ring with Mike Tyson. He's no Mike Tyson. He's Brett.
The reason Brett was so buried was, of course, Russell's overbearing edit. Russell got the most confessionals in a single season in Survivor history. He got like 25% of the season's entire confessional count. Russell in Samoa has more confessionals than Tyson has in his 4-time Survivor career. So, Brett, a guy who gives sleepy milquetoast confessionals in his little v-neck, was probably the first person whose story got the axe when they decided to turn this season into a commercial for heroes versus villains. Sorry, Brett, no confessionals again today. We need to hear more about Russell's seed.
You plant that little seed in their head, in their little brain, and then it grows, and it's called a Russell seed.
Got nothing else for ya. If you think I'm the Mike Tyson of Survivor YouTube, like and subscribe and I'll get you more Survivor content just like this. Until next time, don't get idled out.